Ladies and gentlemen, holy Toledo, talking about the volatility that we saw in today's market and, of course, across the whole week. The broader index going crazy, but somehow finding a way to close in the green after that intraday bottom bounce. The amount of liquidity that's moving around in the market is absolutely insane as the market is trying to find the right way forward, all on top of this government shutdown. And with that being said, you see Palantir that test a very strong level of support that we talked about literally yesterday, and a big bounce was basically taken right after that, and momentum was pushing, and even in the after hours, Palantir back towards its kind of consolidation zone at the resistance high. We'll be talking about that. And of course, we have a lot more interest coming into BMNR all of a sudden when everybody was just calling this a dead stock on X literally this last week. So lots of interesting things to talk about. If you're a new or returning viewer, hit the like button, subscribe for daily videos. We're trying to hit 30,000. Follow me on X down below if you want to see more frequent up-to-date updates in the market. Now pop it up on the screen here. Palantir. Wow. At 177.93, and even in the overnight hours right here, up another $5, closes here at 180 in the afternight hours. Palantir, what we talked about was, it was testing this kind of support resistance area that was there just for a quick second, but a lot of resistance here in the middle of this consolidation phase between 170 and at this 184 area. Palantir, of course, you had the Burry short report with all the puts on Palantir and NVDA. You had uncertainty with the government shutdown, and we saw a large sell-off even after some of the best earnings within the company. And you saw Palantir sit here about 180 for a little bit, lose that, and then we saw and the market opened today a bloodbath, and you can see here these large red candles, and Palantir tests this 170 level of support, and look what you get, a very big bounce. The bulls came through. This kind of matched and correlated with the intraday bottom of the whole general market, and you see Palantir that gets a very nice bounce all the way back up to nearly the top zone of this resistance level at 180. So pretty cool to see here. Great to see that the Palantir bulls are still holding a decent amount of control and helping to basically find some stabilization within Palantir. Why I like Palantir also finding this balance is because I typically use this individual stock as a good barometer on how the whole AI trade is going. Number one is that Palantir carries a very high valuation. It has a ton of criticism against it. So if Palantir is able to be resilient in a market like this, as we've seen Alex Karp even say, you determine the valuation. They're just going to keep executing on the street. And we see that happening. We've seen that with many different historical earnings, and even the most recent one, that fundamentally Palantir is expanding at a very rapid pace. So what we see here is basically the traders trying to hold this consolidation zone, and we see the bulls that are still holding some control. We'll see what happens. Of course, the whole uncertainty that's kind of playing NASDAQ here. CNBC talks about the NASDAQ closing lower, but let's talk about the broader index. You have the S&P 500 that dropped down to like the mid 6600s today and closes at 6728, actually up 0.13%. We finally saw a little final breath towards the market close with a ton of liquidity coming into the market, with hopes that we're going to get the ending of the governmental shutdown soon. Now, the big question is, what's the uncertainty regarding that? In this, the stoppage that we have, you see here concerns from investors around the strength of the U.S. economy. And, now that this is historically becoming, one of the longest, and it's probably going to be the longest shutdown in the history of governmental shutdowns, investors are getting very concerned, especially since we're seeing like airports that are being shut down because air traffic controllers aren't being paid, and it's continuing to kind of cascade. You're seeing macroeconomic data that's not being released because it's basically in purgatory. So the market's trying to navigate itself through this void with a lot of uncertainty that's on top of it, especially with all the tariff concerns and things like that. But all of a sudden today, you get a lot of hope that hopefully we will get an end in the near future. What we do see here talking about, Trump, and not getting political here, just more looking to see what's actually happening, more independent on the channel, because I'm more looking to see what's going to be the reaction to the market from the political news. But saying here, orders the U.S. Senate to basically remain in Washington until the he calls it the Democratic government shutdown, of course, basically until it ends. And if they can't reach a deal, it says here they're going to terminate some filibuster, blah, 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 blah. But saying that, hey, they need to get a deal signed soon. They need to come to an agreement, especially because now the people are suffering. So it's very good. And I hope this is going to be coming to a deal relatively soon. That's what I hope, because that could be a good catalyst into the market, and especially for the year-end rally that everybody is anticipating. And we've had a nice dip now, down about 3% on this week. That could offer some breathing room for that next leg up. What you're seeing here, just looking at some of the flow on QQQ too, QQQ puts showing signs of selling off. You can see right here, this is kind of more in the intraday, and this is where all of a sudden you saw a big bounce in the market. So hopefully bulls are starting to maintain some control. We'll be talking about here, BMNR recaptures a very critical support level here, up about $3 at 40.71. And why that's just a really, important support zone. If you zoom out on BMNR right here, BMNR has always been kind of trading between the 50s, 60s for a little bit in its recent history, and that last time that it's triggered, a very important support reversal right here was at this 40. That basically failed a few days ago, like yesterday, and this is where we saw BMNR come down here into the 36s, which it does have a little bit of trading history actually here in the 36s. But in terms of a bounce here, that's what I was looking for. We do see the recapturing, the reassumption of that support level. We'll see what happens. Some of the bullish news that comes into the market, especially with cryptocurrency that's starting to get a decent bit of liquidity that's coming into it, is JP Morgan, very, very large traditional finance institution, just bought 1.9 million shares of Bitmine, worth $102.5 million. Seeing the largest make in America now has a 9-figure position in a company that accumulates ETH at a very rapid pace. We know Tom Lee is, of course, accumulating BMNR, or ETH, trying to achieve the goal of 5%, the alchemy of 5%, trying to basically, and then hopefully stake it and to become a very, very interesting company, I think, over time. And you can see right here with BMNR, institutional ownership is starting to also accumulate at a very rapid pace. Just looking here from September to October to November, the numbers are quite insane. So the thing that I like about BMNR, kind of what got me back and attracted more to the cryptocurrency space, is just because you have a lot of political support right now for it. And also on top of that, you have a lot of institutions that are taking note, and a lot of institutions that are loading, and especially at these big dips. Since Ethereum, during the whole kind of capitulation event, they had Ethereum that lost at 3,700 floor, even at the 4,000s, drops down here to basically touches and bounces at the 3,000, and now sitting here at about 33 and getting some buying pressure today, right now at 34.56. During this whole time, you saw institutions that were continuing to load. You saw Tom Lee that was continuing to buy the dip. You see different types of investment funds like ARK Invest also continuing to buy the dip. So with that being said, big money is positioning themselves for the next rally and easily taking the shares of BMNR and Ethereum for the people that are being shaken out. So that's why with investing, always analyze your time horizon, and being able to take out your emotion is, a decent, I would say, thing that I at least do when making more of these speculative, very volatile positions. If you can't take this type of volatility, then that means there's just too overexposed or too much leverage into that specific position. Looking at Tom Lee coming out here now, we of course know he has these insane price targets, but comes out here and calls a supply shock incoming, calling $3 million for a Bitcoin, which is absolutely insane. But he's talking down the line, especially depending on how all these governments, how they're going to get involved with the tokenization of assets. It's going to look like I think that's the next big leg for offering these financial products on the blockchain. Tokenization of assets, I think, is going to be a huge move. We've seen that from the TradFi sectors, from the executives, all talking about tokenization. You've seen that with Vlad from Robinhood, and it's not really a matter, I think, at this point of if it's going to happen, more of when it's going to happen. So that's why accumulation right here, you can see from institutionals that are basically executing that at a very fast rate. So we'll see what happens with Ethereum's price. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. And of course, how BMNR is going to correlate with that, especially as their native asset value continues to improve. Looking at different stocks like some of the AI data center stocks, You see right here, Cypher catching a bid after this kind of sold off a little bit, consolidating though that this is near all-time highs though. So consolidating near these all-time highs at an $8 billion market cap, looking quite decent. You see things here like Nebius also catching a little bit of a bid, kind of all these stocks catching that same kind of a bid. And a lot of these names that have sold off tremendously over the last week, as a lot of these stocks have been taking a breather. A lot of frothiness has been cut in the market. Nice to see here a little bit of a relief rally. We'll see what happens with Sunday when the futures open up, and it's never a dull day. So peace out, take care, have a good weekend. After this week, make sure you take some time to mentally relax and to take some stress away. Get off the computer, find something fun to do. Peace out, take care.